One of the biggest concerns that I see expressed for Supreme Ruler 2030 is the state of AI pathfinding. And one of the biggest requests I see expressed for it is the ability for AI to invade over the ocean. This is something the developers have actually touched upon in one of their devlogs. And while at the time of recording this, there's really no definitive answer yet of how AI in Supreme Ruler 2030 will perform, I will take you through a journey talking about the problem, where it started, and how it seems it may finally be fixed. So if you've ever played a neat little game, my first Supreme Ruler game called Supreme Ruler Cold War, you might remember one of the most exciting parts of it was at the very beginning, the first Indochina War fought between France and North Vietnam. In any Supreme Ruler Cold War match, it really had the opportunity to be the biggest war that you might see in your playthrough. France committed as much as they needed to trying to succeed in that war. They sent as much troops as they needed over there, and it was really an impressive first impression of the game and the scale of the wars that you could get into when you watch or play as even one of the superpowers like America for the first time, and you can see directly into this conflict. However, when Supreme Ruler Ultimate released, something was different. Something in the pathfinding had changed. France no longer sent as many units as they needed over there. In fact, almost no French units made it down to Indochina at all. Something changed in the way the AI pathfinds around the oceans of the world, because what we got on the release of SRU, and something that stayed a bug for a long time, was that France would take their units in the Cold War era specifically, and they would sail them up through Denmark and around the Baltic Sea and such, leading up into Leningrad. They would then trespass on the USSR and attempt to path through Leningrad because they believed that going through the rivers of the USSR, which to this day I don't think would even actually lead you all the way to Indochina, was the easiest and most efficient way to get there somehow. This took forever for the devs to finally squash and release with an update. The result was that France would lose all of their units constantly so long as the war in Indochina raged, and the Soviet Union would get the most elite units on the planet, getting free kills on infinite French units running to their deaths. The North Vietnamese would handedly win the war, and it took my favorite era and made it so much less exciting for the longest time. Now, the pathfinding and the way the AI reacts was changed dramatically since then, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was for the better. What we got in Supreme Ruler Ultimate after this was fixed was an AI that simply did not know how to go long distances to begin with. You can't mess it up if you never try to do it, right? And that's what happened. This created many more problems, but apparently this one was better in the eyes of the developers, perhaps, because this is what they chose to keep. Now France in Cold War didn't throw their lives away. Now what we got instead was, for example, a useless Western Hemisphere. What's one of the biggest things that you may have heard or learned about in, for example, the World War I, World War II eras that are both represented in Supreme Ruler Ultimate, is America shipping millions of troops across the seas to fight naval battles against Japan in World War II and in Europe in both of the wars. Well, they don't do that anymore. And even in modern day, you'll never see, for example, America versus Russia. The war in Ukraine would be impossible to simulate because America as an AI would never go help Ukraine. American AI will never defeat Japan in World War II because they simply do not know anymore. I guess there may be a distance limit, but this also applies over land, how to get a unit from point A to point B if that involves going a long distance. If the war is in Europe and the AI is in America, they will not ship over there. If the war is in America and the AI is in Europe, they simply will not ship anybody over there. If the war is in Argentina and the AI is in the UK, Margaret Thatcher, simply it will never be fought. No side will ever send units to go engage the other side across the map. One country was fixed, but the rest were ruined by this. And then more scripting was added in order to try to help this, since the AI didn't do naval invasions of their own and they didn't transport units very well. In World War II, for example, Italy has had their invasion of Albania scripted so that they basically just bum rush as many civilian merchant marines at the target as possible to try to take it over. It's messy, it's kind of bad, but that's what we got. And it's been a very unfortunate state because it has meant that, from what I've seen in my playing of several SR games, SRU has had the worst naval and long-range pathfinding of any SR game there is. However, big changes were announced for Supreme Ruler 2030 in how the AI processes pathfinding around the globe. The biggest thing highlighted in this AI pathfinding in the developer log in question for not only naval unit movements, but they chose to highlight the word trade, so that raises even more question. But the movement of these ships in general is that they added waypoints, not just a waypoint system that you can do, because everybody can do that. I'm sure even the AI might be able to figure out some semblance of waypoints. What they did is they added permanent waypoints to important transportation hubs that may or may not be active based on if someone has permission to go through them or not. For example, the Suez Canal. For example, the Panama Canal. Both of these now are confirmed to have intermittent waypoints that will be involved every time you give a movement order. And theoretically, they could add more of these around in key locations as the game goes on, or even by release. They just didn't talk about it. For example, maybe passing by Singapore, maybe something to do with Cape Town, down in South Africa, maybe something to do with going around South America. I don't know. But they are adding these waypoints, and we do know of at least 2 that are confirmed. So, for example, if this system were in place in Supreme Ruler Ultimate, and France said, I have to get to this war that is currently raging in Indochina, how do I get there? They would take their units, their first task, following current AI logic, would be to embark. They would reach a port and embark, and now they'd have to figure out where to go from there. Well, since they're here and Indochina's on the other side of the world, they would know to go for one of the waypoints that gets them there faster. Hence, it would bring them to the Suez. And by the time they get through the Suez, their waypoints theoretically would adjust. And judging on the competency of AI pathfinding in Supreme Ruler Ultimate, this should be no problem. In Supreme Ruler 2030, they should figure out exactly where to go from there without bum rushing into someone else's country and getting killed, but they would actually theoretically go overseas and defend their colony. As simple as this sounds, this waypointing system promises to potentially solve the biggest logistical problem, in my opinion, that anybody and everybody should see in SRU. I chose to tell this as a story over the progression of Supreme Ruler so you would understand how big a change this was and why this was needed, and to emphasize why I chose to highlight this in its own video. Speaking of, this is just one of now 3 videos, the rest of which you can find in the cards in the top right or in the description below. I have a playlist where I am covering Supreme Ruler 2030 and the changes that have been made to it. There will be even more coverage to come, so if you have any ideas that you wish to see videos made on, feel free to leave those in the comments and I will take you up on your offer, or at least try to answer some questions you might raise to the best of my ability, or both. I have extensively covered Supreme Ruler Ultimate with guides and just normal playthrough videos, PvPs and such. You can find those on the strategy shelf on the homepage, and I would encourage you to do so. A lot of the information for Supreme Ruler Ultimate should still be relevant in Supreme Ruler 2030, so if you want to get a leg up before the game releases and know how to play the game, as it's a very complex and intricate game, watching my content might be just what helps you get there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this story time / feature coverage. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope I'll see you on the next one.